Hello, welcome to another edition of the Pace Report. I'm Brian, Pace reporting live here at 54 Below here in New York City. As you know, here on the Pace Report, I like to introduce you to up-and-coming talent that's really going to, one, take the music world by storm, but also continue in the great lineage of the great, rich American roots music legacy by way of jazz, blues, soul, gospel, and hip-hop, and tonight is no different. Vocalist Cecile McLorin Salvant tonight is performing selections off her brand new Mack Avenue Records release called WomanChild. And this sister brings a whole different swag and a different vernacular to the music. And she really taps into the greats ranging from Billie Holiday to Bessie Smith. Tonight we sat down and we broke bread about the concept of WomanChild. We also talked about her influences in both jazz and also popular music. And we also talked about how she wants to really make and lay her imprint in jazz music, both on the cultural side as well as on the music side. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the sounds of Miss Cecile McLorin Salvant, live here at 54 Below, here in New York City.
With the tropic heat and the rhythm of my heart has a tom-tom beat. You bring out the savage in me. Love cries in my ears with the pressure of 100 million years. You bring out the savage in me. Oh, 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 oh. Call it madness or sin. How was I not to know what was creeping within me? And be my ape man. I'm getting so ferocious and I can't escape, man. You'll find out how wild I can be for you. Savage in the tropic heat and the rhythm of my heart has a tom-tom beat. You bring out the savage in me. Primitive love cries in my ears with the pressure of 100 million years. You bring out the savage in me. Oh, call it madness or sin. How was I not to know what was creeping within me? Just like I'm getting so ferocious and I can't escape. You'll find out how wild I can be for you. Bring out the savage.
Cecile, I want to congratulate you, one, on your debut record, and two, I want to congratulate you on the material that you have covered on this record. First of all, we're dealing with a lot of blues, and we're dealing with a lot of early 1920s and 1930s songs. Tell me about how you came about in selecting the material for this CD.
Well, what I did was mostly choose the songs from this very long list that I have. I have an extremely long list of potential repertoire, songs that I want to sing, that I kind of make up while I'm listening to a lot of music. I did a first album in 2010, and so there was like a 2-year period where I was not recording music. So I had a lot of time to sort of think about repertoire, and I think my main focus is always to choose songs that are maybe a little bit unusual, that have some kind of an edge in the lyrical content, that might be a little funny or a little bit ironic or a little bit outrageous. But but where there's definitely a story to tell, and something that I can play with in terms of interpretation and things like that. So it took a while then to narrow down from that list the songs I wanted to do. But I knew that I wanted to, in a certain way, pay a tribute to certain singers or instrumentalists or artists that had influenced me and my way of singing. Like Bessie Smith was a major influence for me, and I knew that I needed to sing at least one Bessie Smith song. Valaida Snow as well, Billie Holiday, Abbey Lincoln, Betty Carter, all of those people greatly influenced me, and so I wanted to find a way to maybe kind of wink at some of those people in the album. So there's 2 songs that Bessie Smith used to sing and 1 song that Valaida Snow recorded. And so we'll see for the future for the other influences, because I have a lot.
Now, I understand that you were studying law over in Paris, or you were in France studying, and you also got bit by the jazz bug while you were over there also. And this is where you developed your love, and you had to kind of study really the rudiments of the beginnings, the Bessie Smiths and the Billie Holidays. Explain that process.
Well, I was actually in the southeast of France in a small town called Aix-en-Provence, which is really odd because I used to live in Miami and I never really got into singing jazz in Miami. I used to listen to a lot of jazz thanks to my mom, who absolutely loved the great jazz singers. But when I moved to France, I met a saxophone player who would become my teacher, who had this huge discography. He had like a huge music library at home. And so he would every week give me music and introduce me to singers and musicians that I had never heard of. And so he was really a big part of me getting into singing. He really encouraged me to pursue it professionally. I met him, and I remember doing the audition for him and trying to do my best impression of like Sarah Vaughan and you know, seeing where it would go, and thinking that the jazz class would be kind of a hobby and kind of a way to clear my mind, because I had a lot of things on my plate at that time. I was studying political science and law and classical voice, and so jazz was just going to be this kind of chill, relaxed thing. And he ended up immediately pushing me and trying to get me to listen to music and to work and to really develop as a singer. So I really thank him. The album is actually dedicated to both him and my mom, who were both really big parts of why I'm here.
The secret, I got a little secret. The secret kind of secret. I make it want to shout it to every daffodil and tell the world about it. In fact, I think I will. If this is love, the whole world is crazy. If this is love, I am daft as a daisy. With moons all around and cows jumping over. There's something I miss and I need my hand if it isn't love. I'm feeling like an apple on top of William Tell. From this I cannot grab because you're so adorable. If this isn't love, then winter is summer. If this isn't love, my heart needs a plum. But I am riding on stars, I am jumping on rainbows. There's something I miss, and I'll kiss your hand if it isn't love.
I just want to go into some of the songs because you brought up the fact that you had to go into learning the rudiments of the beginnings of this music, and those singers and even the songwriters brought up that swag. You bring out the savage in me, Valaida Snow, and she was a female trumpet player, band leader, and a singer, but the song was considered controversial and racy at the time. Explain why you decided to do this song, and you bring a whole nother interpretation to this song in 2013.
Well, it's a song, it's a song that kind of goes in that whole tradition of those jungle songs that were at the same time very racist and were performed by black musicians. There's this whole history of black musicians and black entertainers in the early 20th century in the United States who, literally or figuratively wore blackface and played the stereotype of the black person to white audiences, which is something that's extremely absurd and sad and at the same time very funny. I mean, talk about overcoming. I mean, to just make fun of the idea of being black to a white audience. I mean, to me, it's something that's really crazy, and I still haven't quite understood what that is. And Josephine Baker did it with her whole banana dance, and I remember hearing you bring out the savage in me and thinking that it was so like incorrect, so politically incorrect, and it really attracted me. That idea really interested me, and so I knew that I wanted to sing it immediately.
You also go into, and we're talking about blackface minstrels. These were some like you said, there were some white actors that did this, and there were black actors that did this also. And another one that was really important to, I guess, black culture as well as comedy was Bart Williams. And you perform Nobody, and his story was kind of tragic too, because even at the very end, people even in the black community turned their back on him. Why did you choose Bart Williams?
Well, he was someone that I was absolutely not familiar with, like even last year. I read this book by Gary Giddens, I believe, where he talks about all these influential figures in American music who maybe were not as famous or were famous in the time, but are no longer remembered today. And I read about Bert Williams, and I thought, let me check this guy out. Let me hear what he does. And the first thing that popped out at me was that he was just talking over the music, and then sometimes would sing. And he was just acting and being very funny, and at the same time, it's like straight comedy, which is like there's no wink at the audience. He was just like really, doing his thing completely. And at the same time, it was very sad to me, the song Nobody. And so the idea that he could juggle those two emotions that could seem like they're completely contradictions, but actually work really well together, was really intriguing to me. So I wanted to try and take my stab at it and sing that song. But yeah, he used to put on blackface, and he would actually sometimes have to pretend he was white to get into the venues. So he had his blackface on. It's crazy. And I remember reading somewhere that he had a lot of pain from that. He suffered a lot from that. And he made a lot of people laugh, but he was not, too laughing. He wasn't laughing too much himself, So that kind of figure, that kind of tragic figure in American history, in terms of identity. Like, what does that say about identity that you're, you know, in that position of the clown, the black man who's pretending to be white, pretending to be black. I mean, it's just wild. It's just incredible. And at the same time, you're revered, you're famous, I mean, I think he might have been pretty wealthy at one point.
He blew it off.
Yeah. He was, you know, sold out crowds, white crowds, super popular man in an extremely racist society. I mean, it's just, there's just so much going on there, and it's really, really interesting.
I've never done nothing to nobody. I never got nothing from nobody, no time. And until I get something from somebody, I will never do nothing for nobody, no time. When I was in that railroad wreck and thought I'd cashed in my last check, who took the engine off my neck? Nobody. When summer comes all cool and clear, and my friends see me drawing near, who says, "Hey Cecile, let's have a beer." I've never done nothing to nobody. I never got nothing from nobody, no time. And until I get something from somebody, I will never do nothing for nobody, no time.
You know, going to your roots, the beginning. You're from Florida. You're from Miami, Florida. Tell me about the hybrid of different types of musics and music styles that you were listening to, because I understand that both your parents are different nationalities, but also it kind of had a very, very big effect on you now musically.
Well, growing up, we listened to a lot of different music. Both my parents really love music. My dad listens to a lot of Caribbean music, Haitian music, classical. He used to play classical piano when he was small, so he has that whole background too. A lot of pop. And my mom is actually one of the people with the most eclectic music tastes I've ever met. She would listen to bluegrass and funk and Portuguese fado, folk music from South America, opera, Senegalese music. I mean, there was all sorts of different kinds of music and genres. And the only criteria was, is it good and can we dance to it, basically, you know, or can we cry to it, or can we cook to it, or, you know, is it music that, you know, does something and brings us up, I guess. And so so I do remember having that sort of openness in terms of music and not feeling like I was tied down to one thing. And I was studying classical music. I was studying classical piano and classical voice. And I think all of those things probably had an influence on how I approach singing and how I approach just music in general and performing and choosing repertoire. So it was great to be in that environment. It was great to have that sort of love of music and you know, to be around people who enjoy dancing, you know, because that doesn't happen all the time, you know.
There's a love in my life. It's just a void, an empty space. When you are not in my embrace, oh, there's a love in my life. The moment that you go, there is no night, there is no day. The clock stops ticking, the world stops turning, everything stops. But the pain in my heart that keeps burning on. There's a love in my life. No matter how I may pretend, I know that you alone can mend the ache in my heart, the call of your arms, the love in my
Your song Chance is the song for the National Chanel campaign. And I'm wondering, how are you feeling right now? Because, you know, all over the world, that commercial is being aired. And your music and your voice is a new voice. And people are now putting the face behind that voice now.
Well, it's pretty funny because I recorded that in someone's house, you know. The guy who works for the advertising company who works for Chanel called me through, because I was recommended through a mutual acquaintance, and we just recorded that really quick in his house, and it wasn't easy because it's a totally different approach to just like, oh, sing whatever you want to sing. It's like you have to, you know, bring these certain words out because we're trying to sell a product, and you have to really sell this product with your voice, which was something that I had never really done or thought about doing. And so it was a really fun experience. And then when I saw it on TV, I freaked out because, you know, it's on TV in Switzerland, and I was like, what? You know, so it was a really fun experience, really cool.
Aaron Diehl and his trio are accompanying you. And I've done a segment and profiled Aaron on the Pace Report. He's a dynamic pianist moving forward in the jazz tradition. How is it working with him and collaborating with him on doing the music? And what is it about Aaron's musicianship that helps your music or your imprint of music stand out?
Well, when I first heard Aaron play, it was on YouTube. I heard him do Viper's Drag, Fats Waller tune. And it immediately it impressed me and it intrigued me to see someone who had such a wide understanding of what jazz is and such a broad scope, and who was such a perfectionist, and everything is really thought out and really beautifully done, and very delicate, and at the same time it's just a really interesting way of playing that I hadn't heard before, and I really thought that we would get along. We would find a way to get along, because and anyone who's playing Fats Waller and adding their own crazy touch to it is definitely amazing in my book. So meeting him and working with him and talking about arrangements and music and our goals has been great. He's an amazing person, and he's really an inspiration for me, and a great friend too. And it's wonderful working with him and finding sort of a kindred spirit in the music,
That'll do it again for another edition of the Pace Report, reporting live here at 54 Below here in New York City. I'd like to personally thank the talented Cecile McLorin Salvant for her time, as well as the staff and management here at 54 Below, as well as the staff and management at Mack Avenue Records. As always, please visit my website, www.thepacereport.com, for my weekly column as well as my past segments. Until next time, remember, if it's in the groove, it'll make you move. Till next time, peace.
The secret, I got a